Selfless action is not possible without seeing the hollowness of the self. You may say you love someone wholeheartedly. You'll still be selfish towards that person. Not because you are a cheat or a deceiver or an exploiter, but because it is not possible to be selfless without knowing the self. People drop gods. This one didn't fulfill my desires. That's the usual center, and one doesn't see what's wrong with that. But the self is such a beautiful thing. It deceives itself, and very successfully so. Very finely so. And as long as one doesn't see what's wrong with that, selfless action is obviously impossible. Please see, why do we act and how do we act? We act from the ego as per the dictates of the ego. The ego tells us, act in this particular way and you would be gratified. Go to that direction and you'll get something. Strike a relationship here and you'll be fulfilled. Get a new job there. Enter that market and fetch that coveted good, and you will have contentment. All our action is action from the self for the sake of the self. You could call it selfish action or action arising out of self-interest. And that's the norm. Why would anybody be an exception to that norm? It seems okay, doesn't it? I feel like buying this, I'll buy. I feel like reading, I'll read. I feel like sleeping, I'll sleep. If I enter that business, I'll make profit. So I do. I like that house, I'll stay there. These are the mannerisms that appeal to me. I adopt them. That's the man or the woman I find attractive, so I approach them. That's the usual center, and one doesn't see what's wrong with that. And as long as one doesn't see what's wrong with that, selfless action is obviously impossible. Selfless action is not possible without seeing the hollowness of the self. Selfless action is possible only when one sees the self as beingless. What is selfless action? Selfless action is to see that all action arising from the usual ego self is stupid. Because the assumption of the ego self is that action will fetch it peace or completeness. And that assumption itself is a borrowed one. And that assumption, that hope has been belied repeatedly in the past. And yet the self wants to entertain that hope. If the hollowness of the self is not seen in the first place, selfless action is just not possible. Selfless action is not a practice, it's not a technique. Selfless action is a result of having seen the void that is the self. Otherwise, you will keep telling yourself, I want to be selfless, nishkam. I want to operate from a center of universality or something. There are a lot of neo-spiritual terms. My life is for others. Now, all this is good social media material, but doesn't mean much. Not because you are lying or you are being hypocritical, But because what you are saying is impossible by rule, by law, you may say you love someone wholeheartedly, you'll still be selfish towards that person. Not because you are a cheat or a deceiver or an exploiter, but because it is not possible to be selfless without knowing the self. The self is the default. That's what we are born with and we die with. You cannot just put away the self because it is nice and more moral to act selflessly, and selfishness is chichi. All that is good copy, good quote, good slogan, but will never fructify. And you'll be torn trying to practice it. You'll say, I want to act selflessly, but you'll find it's impossible. Sometimes you'll rejoice that you have managed to be selfless. And then later on, when you are more collected and see more finely, you will discover that which you called as selflessness was just masked selfishness. Because the self is the doer, the actor, the operator, the center. Which self are we talking of? The truth? No, the ego. We are programmed to operate from there. You cannot wish it away. And then there are lies and deceptions and heartbreaks and breakups and all of that. All my life I was devoted to you and I acted so selflessly. And yet you don't care for me. And it becomes very difficult to explain to the other, no, you cannot act selflessly, not because you are you, but because you are Homo sapiens. Our species, just like the other biological species, is not designed to act selflessly. Just that we are different because we carry the potential to rise a little above the self. Other species don't even have that potential. They'll act as per their biological framework. But the self is such a beautiful thing. It deceives itself. And very successfully so. Very finely so. Aren't we all convinced that a lot of our actions are selfless? Yes. And we'll find it rather humiliating and disgusting and annoying if someone tells us, even in this you are just selfish, and in this your selfishness is even more vicious because it is masking as selflessness. We'll react. We might even slap the speaker. You understand? A safe distance has to be maintained. You donate to the temple and you say, this is just selfless donation. Come on. People drop gods, and that's why it is convenient to have so many of them. You can do god hopping. This one didn't fulfill my desires. 42 coconuts. 56 shrines. And yet he is just smug and egoistic. You keep sitting atop your skies. I'm not visiting you anymore. There is a new god or goddess in town. Some new Babaji is making this one fashionable. Getting it? Our kids. Oh, we are so selfless towards our kids. Come on. The very structure of the sentence, notice it. I am selfless towards my kids. I am selfless towards my kids. Is it possible to be more blind? And then we expect compliance and returns and obedience, basically ROI. No, none of that. So trying to practice nishkam karma, selfless action, without knowing what self is self-deception, not selflessness. In fact, it is far better, more honest, and cleaner if someone says, this is what I am giving to you because that is what I want in return. Saral Kam. The desire is there, and the desire is openly expressed for what it is, a desire. Yes, I am giving you something because I want something else in return. This is fine. At least better than desire veiled, than expectations masked. Are you getting it? So those who think of Karma Yoga, and Karma Yoga, when Sri Krishna talks of Karma Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita, it simply means Nishkam Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga does not mean doing anything with total immersion and intensity. No, that is not Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is getting into it because it is right. And because it is right, I don't care for the results. That's Karma Yoga. So first thing, Karma Yoga is always Nishkam Karma Yoga. Second thing, Nishkamta is not possible. Desirelessness is not possible without encountering the falseness of the ego self.